the world of premium pickup trucks, it's becoming increasingly difficult to stand out from the crowd. And if that's what you want to do, then you're probably going to be interested in this, the new Ford Ranger Raptor. As far as I remember, if I remember correctly, the Ranger Raptor was never meant to be sold in the UK. It was originally destined for Australia and New Zealand. It was designed more with their countries in mind. Bear in mind that Australia has large, open sort of deserts. The outback is very sandy, very open, and there's lots of fast, unpaved roads. This Ranger Raptor, with its trick Fox suspension, would have been ideal for those settings, for that country. But there was a bit of an outcry because they're right-hand drive over there, and lots of people in the UK went, well, I want one too, they're cool, the Ranger Raptor is cool, why can't we have one? So eventually, after a lot of buyers sort of screaming for one, Ford finally said, okay, cool, we're going to sell this in the UK. Now admittedly, it doesn't really make quite so much sense out here. The sort of rugged terrain that we have is not your fast-paced, undulating roads that you can carry a lot of speed over. But that doesn't matter. This car doesn't have to make sense. In a lot of ways, it doesn't really make sense, because if you want it for a commercial practice, let's say you're a builder or a plumber or work with timber, or anything where you have to lug things around, well, this is not really for you, because it doesn't count as a commercial vehicle, because the load carrying capabilities are significantly reduced thanks to those amazing shock absorbers. The other thing is, it's not really as practical and as utilitarian as its sort of more normal Ranger brethren, and as a result, you kind of have to look at this from a different perspective. It's not necessarily a tool, it's really more of a toy. And then when you start to think about it in that sense, then it does start to make sense. As toys go, it's quite expensive. It's around £47,000, I think, if I remember correctly. So it is a very expensive, superfluous thing. But actually, it's a superfluous thing that I really quite like. I've spent about 4 days with this car so far, and it's going back later on today. And when I first got in it, I was like, well, it looks cool from the outside, but it's just, it's just another pickup truck, really. But actually, once you start to sort of chip away at what this thing is like, it becomes quite interesting, quite an interesting prospect from an ownership point of view. It's not without its flaws, of course. Those big off-road, sort of all-terrain BF Goodrich tyres don't really work very well on tarmac, especially when it's wet. Give it too much gas and you'll easily spin up the rear tyres if you've got it in the two-wheel drive mode. So yeah, it's not going to be the best on road performance, but actually the ride is really good, and I think it was probably helped in part by those amazing Fox shock absorbers that got to be very, very expensive. They're very, very trick, and they can take a hell of a pounding. And the Ranger Raptor, I think, was launched to the UK quite literally by jumping over hay bales at the Goodwood Festival Speed, just to demonstrate that what this vehicle is capable of. It will take a pounding. Now, to test that capability, I spent a little bit of time in one of my local green lanes to sort of try out the off-roading capability. Now, it's not a Baja run, it's not undulating dunes, but it's the best that rural Norfolk had to offer at the time. And I have to say, this thing, nothing fazed it. It doesn't matter how thick and deep and boggy the mud was, waded through water, it was just absolutely unfazed by everything that I managed to throw at it. And then, we had great fun with it for a couple of hours, just mucking around in the mud, and we were never driving really fast, we weren't really doing anything stupid, but we had a great laugh, we had a great time with the thing. And that's kind of what this vehicle's all about. It's about having fun and extending your lifestyle experience. So if you're a mountain biker, or I'm struggling to think of other outdoor pursuits, you can tell how many I do, but someone who has to carry stuff that to get to their lifestyle pursue, this thing's going to be ideal, because it's going to go hand in hand, because you can take it places that a lot of other vehicles won't go, and also because it's quite rugged, and because of the way that the vehicle sort of carries itself, you don't mind taking it on those places that other vehicles are going to go, because you just feel like it's meant to do it. Out on the road, the Ranger is respectable. It's not fast, but it's certainly not as slow as I thought it was going to be. When I originally saw the specs and I saw that it had a 4-cylinder turbo diesel engine and a 10-speed gearbox, I was like, I don't really like the idea of that. The first Ranger I ever drove was with the 3.2 litre diesel, which is actually quite a solid, albeit slightly agricultural, but very nice engine for that platform. And I thought, why do they not just go with a slightly tuned version of that engine? That would make much more sense. But actually, the little 2 litre in this actually works really quite admirably. It's not the fastest thing in the world, definitely, you know, by any stretch of the imagination. It's not going to rip your head off. But it's certainly not as slow as you would expect a vehicle of this sort of size to be. And then the 10-speed gearbox. Not the biggest fan of it, just because it's got so many ratios. But actually, if you just leave it in auto and just let the car do the work, it's absolutely fine. You don't really notice that it's got so many gears. It changes smoothly for a vehicle of this type, and you just sort of put it in drive and forget about it. I did try it in manual for a couple of journeys. Didn't like it all that much. It's not really what this vehicle's all about, but you can do it if you want to. And the car does feel a little bit faster, a little bit more sprightly if you do have it in manual and you decide to swap the cogs yourself. But it's not something I personally would choose to do if I had this car. Styling is where this Raptor really comes into its own. Last night I parked this next to standard Ranger, and the normal car just looked so weak, pathetic by comparison. This car is so pumped up. Those wide arches at the front, the wide arches at the back, the big wheels, the side steps, the big sort of muscly sort of appearance that this car has, completely different to anything else on the road that you can, especially anything you can buy straight out of a dealership. This thing just looks so cool, and you do feel cool driving it. You know, it gets attention from people. I personally like that sort of feeling. It's kind of, it makes you feel manly, I guess is probably the best description of it. But it's a silly car, but kind of people, you know, people like it. I've shown it to quite a few people, and everyone thinks it's the coolest thing they've ever seen. And Ford doesn't want you to forget that it's a Raptor as well. If you look around, you can find badges everywhere that tell you this is a Raptor. So to summarise, the Ranger Raptor is great at being a toy. It is a superfluous thing. There's nothing about it that screams practicality or sense. It's not a sensible purchase. You don't buy this car with your head. You buy it because you're appealing to your inner child. It isn't going to be a good workhorse for someone who wants to use it for serious load lugging. But if you do have a small business and you do need to lug stuff around, it still has a reasonable carrying capability, just not enough to warrant it being a commercial vehicle. But as a toy, I can't knock it. It's great fun. I suggest if you're interested in this sort of car, you go out, you get one, you find somewhere muddy, and you just go and have fun, because that's what I've been doing with this car ever since I got it, and it's been an absolute blast. If you like this review, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more videos coming soon.